ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Online Darts Fallout Bar. My name is Dan Simpson. I am joined once again this week by Online Darts Welsh Ambassador Cowan Evans. Cowan, how on earth are you, mate? Are you well?
Very well, thank you. Another enjoyable evening of darts, and I'm in a very good position of saying I predicted all 4 winners tonight, which has never happened. My scores were all over the shop, but I've picked the 4 winners, which makes a rare change.
Well, those in the chat room that were following the Cowan Evans accumulator, we might be celebrating taking a few quid off their chosen bookie. And it was an interesting one tonight. Obviously, we bring to an end the round of 16. We now are, I suppose, heading towards what you would call the business end of the tournament. We do already have some action in the chat room. Don't forget, folks, if you are watching along, we're going to stick to the tried and tested format. We're going to have a review of the action that we've seen tonight. We've got some interviews as well. Our man in the venue, Phil Bars, is there. So we've got interviews from most, if not all, by the end of the show of tonight's winners. We'll then do some predictions. We'll talk about what's going on tomorrow. So if you want to get involved in that, banter from this evening, predictions for tomorrow, make sure you subscribe to the channel because that allows you to get involved in the chat room. There's some action in there already. Yasmin's in, as is Matthew. Daz is in, Shelty's in as well. So we've got a few folks already in there. I suppose we better get on with talking about the darts, I suppose. Why not? That's what we're here for. And the opening game, I mean, we knew, I think, or a lot of us suspected that we were in for some tight games. And does it get any tighter than a deciding leg and somebody coming back from 10 missed match darts, Karen? What a tense affair this was to open up.
Yeah, it was really, wasn't it? And I sort of, when watching it, when Dimmy went 4-0 up, I thought, oh, is this sort of the same old Wattimena? He sort of does well to a certain point and then he sort of fades away and crashes out of a tournament a bit limpish. But no, fair play to him, as in he bounced back, he gave it everything, as in probably not, well, nowhere near the best averages we saw tonight, but obviously we love a last leg decider, and sometimes you don't need the biggest averages to create that excitement. And I'm happy that Wattimena got over the line. I think he's almost like a reborn player these last few weeks, and it seems that it's continued into the Grand Slam, and nice to see him off the back of winning his group, getting past Dimmy.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Jermaine Wattimena has been a player who, I mean, let's be honest, we haven't had to, for the last couple of years, talk about him a great deal. Obviously, we know that he's got that natural talent, and we know that when he's on form, he's a very, very entertaining, a very watchable player. But he just hasn't put himself over the course of the next couple of years into that position whereby we've been able to watch him too much whilst he's very watchable. But I think there's a case to be made. This was a game, I think, that maybe 18 months ago, Jermaine Wattimena loses this match. I don't think he comes through this. Do you subscribe to this view that winning becomes a habit? And is Jermaine Wattimena in the habit of winning on a stage at the moment?
100%. And I think in the same way losing is a habit, winning is very much a habit. And as we've spoken numerous times on the Fallout Bar in recent times, 2024 is a crazy year for darts, as in the script has been thrown out the window. We're seeing new winners left, right and centre. And for players like Wattimena, it's probably a wake-up call that if Mike De Decker, if Richie Edhouse can do it, why can't I? And obviously we've discussed this week, seeds dropping out, seeds not top 16 players not qualifying for the Grand Slam of darts. This is a massive opportunity for the likes of Jermaine Wattimena, and obviously he's coming in off the back of making a final, which he did lose, but confidence grows from making the latter stages. If you're getting to the final day of tournaments, you're doing something right, and it'll be interesting to see how he copes in the next round with that jump up in the number of legs again. But tonight, he got the job done.
He absolutely did. Chat room is getting even busier as we speak. There's obviously more and more people getting that little notification on their phone to say that we're live and getting involved. Jack's in, as is Darren. Daz, I've actually starred your question to come back to for a bit of a chat later on about what we're going to do about the world's the qualifying for the World Championships. Aaron and Bob are in, members both, so they always get a mention. Malachi's in, as is Joe, so is Jamie. It is really, really busy tonight. Everyone's getting involved, which is absolutely fantastic. We do have, from the first of this evening's winners, Jermaine Wattimena, we do have an interview. Phil's been having a chat with him. Let's have a little listen to see what Jermaine made of that one.
That was a really bad, right? Difficult game always when we play each other, but you try to step away from that. But you're same management, you're good friends, and that's what make it difficult. But you don't want to think about it, but it is on the stage. So I'm happy that I win.
I'm not so sure. There is this thing about, and we see more and more of these management stables. These players that may not naturally have find themselves allies and social acquaintances and friends, but because they have the same management, they tend to, they stay in the same hotel, they'll practice together, they eat their meals together. And whilst I accept, yes, it can be difficult playing a friend, someone you're close to, but I also think as well that in some of these situations that if you are a Jermaine Wattimena, and I know he's gone through he's recently made a final, but let's be honest, he's not a man who was, spends his darting career on a big stage in front of the TV. What do you think? Maybe it's slightly easier being up there with one of your pals. Do you think maybe it takes the edge off a little bit, just having someone familiar around you?
Definitely. And it's probably someone he's played hundreds of times in practice and what have you, and somebody's probably beaten in those practice games. So he's going into the game knowing he's got the game to beat his opponent. Where if you're going up against somebody you might have only played once or twice in your career, you don't know what they're going to do, and you don't know what you're going to do yourself. So I do think having somebody from your own stable, as you say, makes it easier. But also, inside these stables, it might not be said out loud, but there is a hierarchy in terms of where in that pecking order you are in the stable. So obviously, if you're beating somebody who's higher up than you in the pecking order, it only helps your case in getting a better room from your manager next time as well.
Yeah, that's it. A better, yeah. Just I was going to say, does Jermaine next time does he get the room with the bath and the shower in the Premier League? Either that or a room to himself. He doesn't end up sharing. He's not in twin beds with anybody. Yeah, I hope so. I hope it gets him a bump up the hotel pecking order. A little bit more action in the chat room, and we'll come to it's all boxed up. Little interesting one there about the quality that we're seeing from, especially like I mentioned earlier, from the qualifiers, because they are the form players. They are the players that have played very, very good darts very recently to get themselves into this tournament. There are people, and it's a funny old tournament, this, especially the qualification, because there are players in this tournament who've done bugger all for a year, and then they find themselves on this big stage against someone that's won 6 games in the last fortnight. I think we are seeing definitely players carrying form into this event. Now, speaking of a player carrying form into this event brings us nicely, I think, into our next game, as the hopes of North East Darts. We'd already had to deal with Chris Dobie not being at the event, but I feel a little bit like Ryan Joyce didn't deserve this. But my word, what a performance from Gian van Veen. What a player.
He's having a week to remember, isn't he? As in, he can't do anything wrong. As in, I did expect him to beat Joyce just because I think the way he played in the groups, he was unstoppable, especially coming out of that group on top anyway. But to then maintain over 106 average over 12 legs tonight, it's just nothing seems to faze him. As in, for a, what is he, 22, 23-year-old, he's just oozes confidence, and as I'm sure the clip we'll see in a bit shows, he's a very mature darts player for a very young man, as in he doesn't get the headlines that Littler gets and some of the other young players get, but he just goes about his business, is sort of not regimental, but he's got something about him that just makes him very professional. And that's sort of not taking away from any other young players that they don't look the same, but there's just something about him that I feel like he doesn't act like a 22-year-old. But he's got youth and experience all wrapped into one.
Yeah, without a doubt, and it was a staggering performance. You know, it's 106 average, which means his tournament average continues to be over 107, which after this amount of darts is absurd. Like to be averaging 107 after 4 legs is very good. To be averaging 107 after 4 matches is completely ridiculous. It's absolutely bonkers, and then he's coupled that with a 60% doubling as well tonight, which means you have not got a chance. You just have to throw the darts of your life to compete with him. You know, and we are going to hear from Gian just in a moment. And I think as well, you know, it comes across beautifully in his interviews. He's a very, very intelligent bloke as well. You know, I think there's a lot of people are aware, you know, he's continuing his university studies. I can't remember specifically. I didn't know what he was studying. It's something high on. You know, if it's not rocket science, it's astrophysics or something up there. He's a clever lad, and it's a delight, to be honest, to see him on the tour and playing the way that he is and being the kind of guy that he is. I think is a very good thing for darts. But yeah, well, let's have a little hear from Gian and see what he made of it.
I know how great of a player Ryan is, but like if you say Michael Van Gerwen or everyone else, you're always going to be surprised that it's not Michael Van Gerwen. So yes, of course I was, but you know Ryan played fantastic in that game. Like the last 80 check out in 2 darts is phenomenal, of course. But you know, a lot of players say they don't matter who they play, but of course I've rather played Ryan Joyce than Michael Van Gerwen beforehand. So I knew it was going to be a tough game, but I think I handled it well today. Yeah, for sure. You know, last year, as you said, making the European Championship semi-final gave me a lot of pressure, like performing here in the Grand Slam, playing Championship finals, and especially the World Championship. But as you can see, what Luke Littler has done from that moment onwards is every eyes are on him, and he's performing really well under that pressure. But it's gave me a lot of less pressure this year. I think my performance, especially on TV, has been okay, but it doesn't really matter about the pressure. But especially this tournament, you know, everyone's talking about him, and even though I'm playing well, they're still talking about him, which is, of course, he's only 17 years old and playing phenomenal. But I think that less pressure on me has really gave my game a massive boost.
Tell you what, there's something in the Dutch education system that weighs very heavy on the word phenomenal, isn't there?
Mm.
They love that. No, I think you made some really, really solid points there. And you know, we've talked a lot about some of these young players. You know, we know the way that Josh Rock was treated by, you know, the media. And I do think, and Jan's one of them that's benefiting from it. And we'll talk about Littler in a minute, but there are some young players at the minute that are on a bit of a free pass because of Luke Littler, aren't they? Because they aren't getting anywhere. You know, if Luke Littler wasn't a dart player, Gian van Veen would be being covered by every media outlet, certainly darts media outlet, to a much, much greater level than he is. And he's getting, and I think he understands it, he's getting a bit of an easy ride because of that, isn't he?
Yeah, and obviously, the hype that Luke Littler has brought to darts has only benefited the sport, as in there's media across the world talking about this, to use the Dutch phrase, phenomenal 17-year-old player. But yeah, it's given the likes of Van Veen that free ride to just concentrate on the darts and knowing whatever they do, as long as Luke Littler either crashes out in the first round or wins his match, he'll get the headline. So it'll certainly benefit them in the long run as well. As in, if they can do this now, hitting these 107 averages, and we saw with Nyman in the group as well, him averaging crazy numbers and not winning a game. So the young boys, they're seeing their chance and grabbing it with two hands, because obviously there'll come a time where Littler might not make the headlines, and then they'll have had this experience on the big stage of hitting big numbers, and they'll be ready for the media onslaught when it does hit them.
Now, on the subject of Luke Littler, let's move to the next game. Now, I promise you, because the action in the chat room is very much sort of that we are circling around one subject. I promise you, those of you that have been subscribed for a while know that I have a very, very strong view on this, and it aligns quite nicely, I think, with a lot of yours. I have a relatively ruthless and uncompromising view on it, and I'll come to that in a minute. But let's just, before we get to that, let's just have a little reflection about the darts that we see on, because if you take the shenanigans away, this was an unbelievable darts match. We saw more 180s than we did legs in a longer format than we have seen through the tournament. We saw monstrous averages. We saw twists and turns in terms of who was in the lead and who wasn't in the lead. Darts alone, this was incredible, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, we've seen two incredible darts players average over 103 and 104 respectively, and between them miss 41 darts at a double. That's how awesome the rest of the game is, that they're still maintaining that averages, having missed that many doubles. As in, it was probably a game of about 6 halves, as in when the Decker was 8-4 up, you're thinking, right, get to 9, and then the pressure is on Littler. And obviously, yeah, we'll discuss what happened in a bit, but Littler needs a bit of praise as well for the way he came back, as in many player would have probably chucked the towel in at 8-4, but we know that's not his game. And yeah, it was just an enjoyable game of darts between two players who, if they continue with the form, will be rivals for the next 10, 15, 20 years even. And if they're hitting averages like this, then I'm all in for it.
Yeah, and I think if you watch this game on mute, you'd walk away saying that's probably one of the best games of darts I've seen this year. It was superb. We had in 19 legs, we had 63 visits of 140 or more. Like, I mean, that's completely mental, isn't it? Like, yeah, we had 63 visits of 140 or more. Like, truly superb. Right, you'll have to excuse me for a minute, because I'll probably start and I don't know when I'll stop. But it is the crowd and the way, it's not just the crowd, right? Okay, let me phrase this better. The way that the crowd were allowed to become involved in that game by what sounded to the amateur ear like the same people whistling and fucking around while people were trying to throw doubles in what was one of the best darts matches of the year is an absolute, I mean, it's a disgrace. But I am sick of reiterating that it is a disgrace that we need to see more activity in shutting down. And I know there is a lot of conversation in the chat room about the refereeing, and yes, I do think the referees have a part to play in this. However, what the referee is unable to do is physically take hold of these people and drag them through the emergency exit door. There are, however, 60-odd people in that building who are licensed and perfectly allowed to do so. Now, there are lines of security. For those of you that have been to PDC events, there are lines of security guards at the front of the stage looking outwards, and their job is to look at the crowd. The whistling was so loud, and it was happening so often. Somebody has to have seen it. I've watched people dragged out of events for vaping under the table, and the security are able to spot them. I am not having it that a concerted effort cannot be made where we could put people specifically in there whose job is to find out who the fuck is whistling and drag them out through the emergency exit. Because once you start to do that, once you make it very clear on people's tickets, on the email that's sent to them, that this behaviour will not be tolerated. And if you behave in this way, you forfeit your right to be in that room. And you'll be dragged out by your feet if necessary. Just remove them. And it staggers me that we are where that hasn't started to happen. Because what I do think is, it's like anything. You start to make an example of people, and people start to understand that if they do dick around like that, they will be forcibly removed. Then they'll stop. There's only one way to stop it. You can't ask people politely. You can't whinge about it afterwards. I just think that the venue or the security that are running it have to start to take some control. Otherwise, what we will see is more and more of it, because we've heard it and seen it tonight, and everybody hearing that in the venue has heard it and now thinks that that's acceptable at a darts match because nothing's happened to those that did it. And that's the same. Yeah. Will watch it on TV, that'll then go to an event, they'll then go to Ali Pali, and they've seen on TV it's perfectly acceptable to whistle when someone's throwing a dart at a double or shout out ridiculous things. By all means, sing along, unless you're doing the Toure chant, in which case you should be dragged out by your feet as well. That's unacceptable. But it's just, I agree with the negativity around it. I think it's ridiculous. I think that the way that we resolve it isn't the referee. I think what you then do, if I'm honest, and I've been in an awful lot of rooms where people are throwing darts and it's full of people on the piss. And I think that you end up potentially just making a game of it with the referee. You know, the referee calls for order, then he gets booed, then the whistling goes, and then you go back and forth, and then you create a situation. And you know, there are people that say the referee should be stronger or should be acknowledging it more. But my point is, the referee wouldn't have to if the people who did it were no longer in the room.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think it's getting to the stage where I think the difficult thing is both players are never whistled. It's always one being whistled. Because what I would say is you take the players off and you delay the darts. You stop the entertainment on stage. And if it doesn't stop, they play off stage, as in punish everybody in these dart halls. As in, I do think. Now, I'm not advocating for a second for there to be no beer on sale in these places, because it's part of the entertainment, it's part of the show, it's how it's done. But I was at an event last year when there were people who couldn't even spell their 3-letter name by mid-afternoon, and
don't careful that people with 3-letter names who can't spell them after too many beers.
But
there were people. It wasn't me. I'm trying to think. Was it me?
No, it wasn't you, Dan. Well, I didn't see you unless I saw you from afar. But no, the thing is, as in, we all go to the darts to enjoy the event and the atmosphere, but also to enjoy the darts. And when you've got two players who are averaging over 100, then I don't know why you'd want to spoil that, because dart matches like that don't come around that often. As in, we're not often treated to such spectacles. And when a player is treated like that, there's no place in darts for it. That's not sport. That's not what these players play it for. As in, okay, it won't affect De Deckers in terms of losing a tour card, but he's effectively, it's cost him £12,500 tonight. The reaction the crowd gave him towards the end of that game.
Yeah, I think we've had this conversation too many times. And yes, you know, there's loads of different conversations that we can say, and there's people who've got the chat room's full of them, and I won't put them all on the screen because, frankly, just because there's too many. But and there's lots of narrative around. Well, the referee should be doing this, and we shouldn't sell as much alcohol. But my personal view is that if those that were found to be transgressing were swiftly removed from the venue, other people would think, better not fucking whistle. The last lad that whistled got dragged out by his ears. And I just think, well, that solves it really quickly. And that might be a draconian view. That might be the ex-bouncer in me that's talking. But I still think it's flawless logic. With that, and I'm reluctant to play this clip now because I know what it says. But we will hear from Luke anyway. But let's just have a little hear about what Luke made of it.
Yeah, a few times they were singing. Obviously, there's only one Luke clip, and I couldn't find what they wanted. Couldn't find that 2-3 treble visit. But 9-7, I just thought to myself, you got nothing to lose now. Just try and hit back at him, and then I got one back, and then the crowd, obviously, they were on his back even worse. And then I took full advantage.
8-4 down. Did you believe you could turn it around when he was playing so well?
No. In my head, I was gone. But I just thought to myself, just get a leg or two back, get the darts back, and then we'll see what happens.
Well, I mean, Luke acknowledging, I think that, and I know there was an interview on stage straight after, but he has acknowledged that the crowd were on De Decker's back. I think, and he'll probably go away. He might think about it, but also he'll probably reflect on the fact that De Decker didn't bomb that game. Look, he didn't crumble, and that's what I mean. It says an awful lot about Mike De Decker because he didn't crumble. Luke Littler didn't necessarily win that match because De Decker stopped being able to throw darts properly, and Luke didn't limp over the line without throwing anything of great quality. Like Luke still had to play monstrously well in order to get the job done. He knows that he came back, but if you look at the stats, he's not edged him out with an 86 average because De Decker's had a stinker at the end when the crowd got on top of him, like we've seen in other instances of the crowd getting involved in a game, and it turns the game into a shenanigan. Luke's level didn't really fluctuate throughout the game. Neither did Mike De Decker's. It's more annoying than anything else. I think it's deeply frustrating. Right, one more, and this was another. I mean, it was an interesting game, another enjoyable game. If I'm honest, Cowan, it wasn't quite what I expected. And did we see too little, too late from Stephen Bunting? Did he just let it get away from him too early in this?
Yeah, that's exactly it. From 2-2, he lost the game there and then. Really, when Gary won 6 on the trot, as in, and yes, there was a mini comeback, but it was a similar really to the earlier games. Where you thought once Gary gets to 9, he's probably safe, and when he took that 138, you thought, right, yeah, he's just gonna. He's been let in 120 times, and there was that checkout going to be there, and then obviously he got the 103 to win it, and yeah, Bunting lost that game between leg 4 and leg 10.
I think whilst we didn't see this wasn't a vintage. Well, it wasn't a vintage Gary Anderson performance in terms of the huge averages that we know he's capable of. But you are not going to ever beat Gary Anderson in a race to 10 with 20% on your doubles. Because even when he's playing, even Gary's C game will score well enough to not allow you to miss 23 darts at double. Like, you can't miss 23 darts at double playing Gary Anderson in a race to 10. Even with his C game, because he's too good, and I think a lot of those misses came too early in the game. I think if he'd have pinned some of them and maybe gone into the second break tighter, knowing that it was his to win rather than that the deck was so stacked against him, then but even when we saw that mini comeback, it just looked a little bit limp, didn't it?
Yeah, it was almost as if, I don't want to say Gary took his foot off the pedal for a few legs, but it felt like the result was set in stone at 8-2, and the other, quickly do my maths here, the other 6 legs just sort of happened, and the result was inevitable. Yeah, to beat Gary, you've got to hit pretty close to 50% on your doubles, because the more chances you give him, the more he'll take advantage. And if something, this sort of performance has made Gary look a bit human again this week, because he's looked like he's well up for this, and as Jack mentioned last night, this is when he wants to add to his cabinet, and he's certainly shown enough, I think, to make a serious case about taking this one home come Sunday.
Well, before we get on to, because we're going to have a look at some predictions and what we think is going to happen in the next round. Before we do that, let's have a little listen to what Gary said to Phil. We've managed to get a full suite of interviews tonight. We're hearing from all of tonight's winners. I haven't heard the Gary clip because it's been added into our back end while we've been live on the show. So we'll find out with you what Gary had to say about it.
And I could see that treble great, and it's made it all the worse. I think I played better when I couldn't see it. Yeah, down this morning, quick tweak, and no, they're bang on now. No blur vision or anything like that. But I watched the game with Luke and I watched the game with Mikey. Mikey should have won that, and they should have won that, you know. And I think Luke will tell you the same. Mikey Dedeker should have won that match, and he'll be, you know, he'll be absolutely fuming tonight and tomorrow and the next time, all the way up to Minehead, and they'll be wanting to make it right. So, you know, we talk about Luke Litter and these boys, but Mikey Dedeker, that boy's good.
Gary Anderson doing what Gary Anderson does in interviews and talking about anything other than Gary Anderson. He does an awful lot of that. Right? Gary, tell me about your match. I'll just chat about the one before and tell you about that instead. Thank you, Gary. Right. That concludes the round of 16. We're on to quarterfinals, which is the business end of the tournament. It is quarterfinal night tomorrow. Yeah, couldn't see something after that. It's doing all right. Yeah, I get whenever I say tomorrow on the Fallout Bar, I have to say really slowly while I check, because sometimes with these shows we end up very much late into the evening. But yeah, it is still tomorrow. I don't think we've got an order of play just yet for tomorrow. So let's go. I'll tell you what we'll do then, to be sensible. We'll do it in bracket order, because then at least we're retaining some structure to the proceeding. Don't get folks in the chat room, please get involved with your predictions, because then we can ridicule you tomorrow night when they're wrong. If you are trying to get involved in the chat room and you can't, it's because you're not subscribed. It's a rule that we have, it's a trick that we play. Subscribe to the channel, get your predictions in. We'll go through the games one by one. Like I said, we will do them in bracket order. We are now, these are long, we are up to, and this is quarterfinals, semi-finals, and final are the best of 31, which for those of you who aren't good at maths, is the first 16, I believe. Is it not? Yeah, oh, there we go. Did it there? I thought that is generally where I make a mathematical error while I'm doing everybody else's math. So we will start at the top of the draw, right up at the top, where B2 plays A1, for those of you who can remember back to the round robin stage, and Cameron Menzies plays Mickey Mansell. Cowan, what do we think about Menzies against Mansell?
Well, first things first, I think it's amazing that a quarterfinal at the Grand Slam of that features these two players. I think it's just would nobody would have discussed this as a potential quarterfinal 6 months ago, but obviously 2024 is the year that gives us everything. I just hope both players sort of play like they've done and they don't let the occasion get to them, because obviously it is a huge game for both players, with the potential of making it through to the semis. And I don't really...
One second, I've cocked it. Because we're not doing 4 tomorrow, we're doing 2 tomorrow. And
2
we're doing,
tomorrow and 2 on
so
Saturday,
we are
isn't it?
only doing 2. That's why I've not got an order of play. Because there are 2 bloody matches.
But I think you've picked this one. I think this one will be the first match tomorrow. I'd be surprised if not, purely based on Cross being the other. But
being the only established left in the tournament.
Only seed left in the top half, yeah. I don't know. I don't want to write Mansell off, because I've written him off a few times this week and he's come back to bite me. But I just think at the moment, Menzies is he's in this bubble, he's in this dreamland where he's booking time off work because he's got to play darts, and he seems to be loving life. And if he's not swearing and getting caught swearing, he's having a good time. So I think Menzies wins 16-13.
That causes me a problem. Because now I have to think. That's pretty much where I was at. But because I think Menzies wins. And I do think he wins well, but I'm not convinced. We don't often see Menzies. We've seen him struggle on big stages so many times that picking him for a really wide victory seems foolhardy. But 16-11, Cameron Menzies, I think. Let's have a little look. You only get on the screen if you put an actual score. Don't just give me a name. We want commitment here. Otherwise, we've got nothing to bully tomorrow. James has gone Menzies winning 16-9. Oh, Boxed Up has got a 6. He's back for me. He's got a 16-10. Jamie has got Mickey Mansell winning 16-12. Member Bob has got 16-12 to Menzies. Maliki is a 60s-10 Menzies as well. Menzies getting quite a lot of picks. Anonymous 16-12 Mansell. We've got some Mansell love there. Daz has gone with a 16-14 Menzies win. That is going to be a long old game. Jack's gone Mansell 16-12. So yeah, do you know, Joe 16-10. So we have got a bit of a split. We've got more going Mansell than I thought. I mean, Mickey Mansell has played some amazing darts so far. He's played absolutely superb. Is this game a little bit who will run out of steam first?
Yes, and also I think if Menzies can just sort of keep focused, because obviously Mansell will take his time. We know how he plays and how he likes to play, and I think if Menzies can just keep his temperament in order, I think he wins. Where it could go horribly wrong for him if it starts playing on his mind that Mansell is playing slower than he'd like him to, and that the pace of the game gets to him. And that's when Mansell is dangerous, because we've seen people forgetting his name, people commenting on how he plays this week, and he has gone further than all of them. So I think that's what it comes down to as much as anything, is how does Cameron Menzies control the waiting around game, maybe, because yeah, if he can control that, I do think he wins 16-13, as I said.
And then so tomorrow's second game sees for some time we were able to say the highest seeded player left in the tournament. Now that we've seen Dimitri Vandenberg and Stephen Bunting fall away, we can now say the only seeded player left in the tournament. At the quarterfinal stage, there are no seeds left. Ridiculous. And he's played some great darts, has smashed. But do we give Martin Lukeman a chance against Rob Cross, Carwin?
I really want to see Martin win. I think the fact that he said the other day he doesn't care about the money, he doesn't care about the rankings, he just wants a photo with his wife on stage. And I was told by that, as in I'd really like I'd really like to think that Lukeman gets the job done. He's going to have to play out of his skin because, as we know, Cross has got a great A game, a great B game, and a very good C game. Can Lukeman if he wins, it's probably 16-14. Has he got high 90s, 100 average over 30 legs of darts? I don't think he does. And it breaks my heart saying this, but I think Cross wins. I think 16-12 Cross. Sorry.
What he said. I think I don't know how to put it into better words. It's Lukeman has been superb. I'm a big Martin Lukeman fan. Anyone who has bumped into me in Minehead at the UK Open will know that me and Gob follow Martin Lukeman around that multi-board room, harassing him essentially, shouting things at him. I'm a big fan of Smash, but whilst he's been playing the best darts we've seen from him and putting really, really top performances together, I think that to be able to do that for what is going to have to be more than 26, 27 legs at a bare minimum, I just don't know if he can sustain the level that we've seen from him for that long. And I think he's going to have to find that level to beat Rob Cross, because Rob Cross grows into games and develops as the game goes on. And the idea of playing over 30 legs is amazing for Rob Cross, because he knows that and even going behind in those lengthy games doesn't worry him, because he knows that he's got another gear and another gear and another gear, and he can stay in and he can fight and he can scrap and he can get there and then he can take control. And I just think because of knowing all of that, I find it really challenging to not, how wide? 16. What did I say the other one? 16-11. 16-12 is where I'm going. 16-12 to Rob Cross. Chat room's busy. I think we've got a bit of a mix, to be honest. Malachi's gone with 16-12 to Lukeman. The Laptop Guru has gone 16-10 to Cross. Bob has gone 16-9 to Cross. Jamie Wyman, I'd love to see Lukeman win, but Cross wins 16-11. A little bit further up, Jamie's gone 16-6. Oh, do you know, I thought there might have been a bit more Lukeman in here, but I don't think there is. Anonymous has gone 16-9. Cross has a good game and overpowers him. Difficult to argue that. Daz, there he is. Daz has gone with 16-15. I tell you what, Daz, if you're right, if we see 16-15 and Lukeman wins, then we will have watched an incredible game of darts. I guarantee that we'll be on the fallout tomorrow night in a very good mood, if that's what happens.
Starting at 2 a.m.
Yeah, I guarantee. Oh, Christ, yeah. Can we have a couple of 16-2s tomorrow? That's ideal. We could do without dialing into the fall out about 1:30 in the morning. Any more? Have we got any more? Oh, we have. Matthew, we've got loads of predictions. Matthew's gone 16-12 cross. James has gone 16-11 cross. Yeah, we've definitely got a pattern in there. Well, I think we're all in agreement, to be honest. Now, what that means is we'll either all be on here tomorrow, squeak one in for Joe as well, who's coming late with a 16-8, but he hasn't told us who to. Let's assume.
Oh, I think he mentioned cross a bit further up, to be fair to him.
Oh, did he? I was going to say.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he has gone cross on there. I was about to say, let's assume he means Lukeman, just for some balance onto the debate. Right, we'll leave it there. We'll come back tomorrow night. We'll have a little chat again. We'll see how if we've all, because we're virtually in consensus, I think, for predictions tonight. So we can either all look foolish tomorrow and see how it's gone wrong, or we can celebrate being the darting experts that we are. Tomorrow, it's me plus others. I don't know who else is on. Are you back tomorrow, Carwin? I think.
If I'm allowed back, yes, I think I will be back
tomorrow. I think Cam might be joining us as well. I think we might have a bit of a. I think we might have a multi-team chat tomorrow evening. So we're a busy day tomorrow, but I will be joining you all tomorrow evening for the Fallout Bar. As always, thank you all in the chat room. It's very, very much appreciated that you get involved. It's a far better show when you're all involved as well, because we have a little bit of something to talk to. Thanks to Phil in the venue for getting 4 interviews for us. Don't forget, folks, we only show you very small and short snippets from the interviews. The interviews are all available in full on our YouTube channel, Online Darts. You know where to find that. You're already subscribed. So please go and watch the rest of those interviews and enjoy them. I have been Dan Simpson. I've been joined by the wonderful Carwin Evans. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. I will see you all tomorrow, and good night.